Tonight, growing tensions between Kyiv and Washington, Ukraine's president accusing President Trump of spreading Russian propaganda, fueling questions about the future of American support in Ukraine. Plus,
we need to make that investment as a country because the name of the game is keeping peace.
A $100 billion defense boost, the push to increase the nation's firepower. And big tech under the spotlight, lawmakers demand answers on kids' online safety. And the fight for family values, why pro-life advocates say the battle is far from over.
The pro-family, pro-life movement is, quite frankly, I think trying to get its footing.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A war of words between President Trump and Ukraine's President Zelensky. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. A rift is growing between Ukraine and the United States. Zelensky slamming Trump for echoing Russian propaganda after Trump claimed Ukraine started the war. The comments come as the U.S. shifts its approach to Russia. Meanwhile, Russian officials praised Trump's stance, calling it a sign he understands Moscow's position. With Ukraine's future on the line, Zelensky warns Russia cannot be trusted.
We have seen this disinformation. We understand that it is coming from Russia.
And President Trump's special envoy is in Ukraine tonight for high-stakes meetings with President Zelensky. He said the White House recognizes Ukraine's sovereignty and understands its need for security guarantees in a potential peace deal. Meanwhile, Putin is calling for a meeting with Trump, but preparations need to be made. All right, for more on this, we are joined by CBN senior international correspondent George Thomas. George, so Trump is pushing back against Zelensky today, calling him a dictator. How significant is this rift between Ukraine and the U.S., and what could it mean for American support?
Well, talk about things that are moving at a breakneck speed in the region. Clearly, what Trump is doing is he is sidelining Zelensky and the Ukrainian negotiators from coming to the negotiating table. He wants this solely to be between the United States and Russia, even to the point sidelining the Europeans. It's a seismic shift in U.S. foreign policy after 3 years of, in essence, sidelining and having no communication with the Kremlin. Trump has changed that, turned that on its head. And really going forward, I think what you're going to see is an administration that is going to increasingly continue to sideline Zelensky, call for elections and attempt to sideline his presence, and in the process have this direct communication with Putin in the effort to try to bring some kind of a ceasefire at the very moment, to talk about a ceasefire, and then down the road talk about the details of a potential peace plan. Again, Zelensky has said, listen, you can't have a peace plan or even talk about negotiations if we, the country that has been aggressed against, is not at the table.
Yeah, George, with Ukraine left out of these key talks, though, does Zelensky, what leverage does he have to keep Western support on his side?
Well, the question is not so much Western support as much as American support. I mean, there is obviously a concerted effort by our European allies to shore up support for Ukraine. A British Prime Minister is heading to Washington, D.C. next week. Obviously, this is going to be at the top of the agenda. The Europeans are totally caught off guard. They also realize that this affects them tremendously, and the call by Secretary of Defense Secretary Hexet to, in essence, tell the Europeans to step up to the plate, or the United States is going to ship out of the region, pull troops, and obviously pivot to Asia. But this is also an alarm to our European allies, and also I would say the future of NATO is absolutely on the table, because this has always been Vladimir Putin's beef with the West, with the Europeans, with the United States. He's constantly telling the world, stop moving your troops closer and closer to the east, closer and closer to my borders. And what Trump is doing, in essence, is telling Putin, I hear you, and we're going to change. We're going to change the trajectory that has been around for the past 30 years that considers you as an enemy, we want to bring you into the fold and create some sense of peace in the region. We'll see if it works.
Yeah, it sounds like Trump just wants this war to be over. He wants America to stop spending money on what he sees as a war that doesn't have an end in sight. Ukraine has a strong Christian community, George. What does this shift by American leaders mean for them?
Many of the evangelical leaders that I have spoken to in the last 2 weeks, even just today, talking to a key contact who has been very instrumental for us to work in Ukraine and other parts of the former Soviet Union, they really feel betrayed. They feel betrayed by the United States. You know, back in 1996, the United States and Ukraine made a deal that if any aggressor would come to attack Ukraine, that the United States would support it. It was called the Budapest Memorandum. The sense in Ukraine among evangelicals is that once again the United States is betraying them.
All right, senior international correspondent George Thomas. Thank you so much, George. Great to see you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Same here.
Well, while Ukraine's future remains uncertain, Jews around the world are holding their breath as Hamas prepares to hand over bodies of 4 hostages tomorrow. Among them, members of the Bibas family, Cherie and her 2 small children, Ariel and Kafir. Hamas announced they were no longer alive, murdered after they were taken hostage and dragged into Gaza. Israel has not confirmed their deaths, but says it has grave concerns about their fate. Cherie's husband and the boy's father, Yarden Bibas, was released weeks ago after spending 15 months in captivity. Hamas is also expected to return the body of Oded Leafsheets tomorrow, in addition to 6 living hostages this weekend. It comes as both sides prepare to negotiate the second phase of the ceasefire. And while the fragile ceasefire holds in Gaza, for now at least, U.S. lawmakers are looking to strengthen defense here at home. Republicans are pushing for a $100 billion boost to the Pentagon's budget, funding military rebuilding, modernization, and a new missile defense system. Caitlin Burke covers national security and has more.
GOP lawmakers are behind this push in growing America's defense capabilities, citing the importance of using strength to deter enemies amid growing global threats.
We need to make that investment as a country because the name of the game is keeping peace. The name of the game is avoiding war and having our allies and our friends out there also avoid war. But we do that by being strong. And we do that by investing in defense.
U.S. defense spending is currently at the lowest level since World War II.
This is not enough to deter our enemies. Just look at the consequences of underfunded and uncredible American deterrence over the last 4 years. The Taliban retook Afghanistan. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of its neighbor. Iran and its proxies perpetrated the worst attack on Israel since the Holocaust.
Congressman Mike Rogers believes defense spending needs to be at 5 to 6% of the country's gross domestic product, a number retired Army General Jack Keane supports, while adding more money must be accompanied by reform.
We have to fix our business practices in the Pentagon, and we have to hold the Pentagon, responsible and accountable for that. And we certainly have to fix how we do business with the defense industrial base and also with our own organic industrial base. And I think the Congress has to take a tough look at itself in terms of how it does business with the Pentagon.
Meanwhile, Representatives Jen Kiggins and Sanford Bishop, a Democrat, relaunched the Bipartisan Military Family Caucus, focusing on the home front as part of the overall defense effort.
We did a lot of good work last Congress, and we had 31 amendments that came out of the House. 29 of them passed out of the Senate to the tune of about $5 billion. But Congress really listened, and we put our money where our mouth is, and we're working on improvements. But the Family Caucus that we are now starting up for this Congress is important to me because it will allow for a vehicle to follow up.
With Republicans holding slim majorities on the Hill, House members hope to push through a new budget resolution, which would include $100 billion in additional defense funding. Senate leaders, meanwhile, are calling for a $150 billion increase. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. And coming up, are kids really safe online? Lawmakers grill tech leaders over child safety in the digital age. What it means for parents after this. Welcome back. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, is pushing ahead with federal cuts. Staffers were at the Pentagon this week, combing through lists of probationary workers. Civilian new defense contractors could be on the chopping block. Uniformed military personnel are exempt. Meanwhile, plans for DOGE to cut 10% of NASA's workforce have been reversed, and officials are scrambling to rehire employees from the National Nuclear Security Administration who were let go last week. It comes as a federal judge has denied a temporary restraining order that would have blocked DOGE from accessing sensitive information from half a dozen departments. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, there is bipartisan concern about kids and the digital era we're living in. In a Senate hearing today, members from both sides of the aisle agreed this era has quickly become dangerous and deadly for kids. Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London joins us now with more on the focus on strengthening protections and addressing legal gaps. Michelle?
Well, Jenna, you could feel the intense emotion during the hearing as parents shared heartbreaking testimonies. Some said cybercrimes on social media are responsible for the senseless deaths of their children. South Carolina State House Rep Brandon Guffey lost his oldest son, Gavin, to suicide after falling victim to Instagram extortion.
The predator that contacted Gavin was recently extradited to the U.S. 2 weeks ago from Lagos, Nigeria. I hope you ask, how is this possible? It's possible because Instagram removed the profile that attacked Gavin, but left up the additional profiles that predators used. One of those is the account that began to attack my family.
Since his son's death in 2022, Guffey passed Gavin's Law in South Carolina, requiring education around online extortion across the state. He's hoping it gives children awareness and prevents them from feeling alone. Another witness testified that the mental toll is severe on prosecutors, child advocates, and law enforcement officers. The things they're exposed to on a daily basis has led to burnout and PTSD. Retired New Jersey Police Commander John Pizzuro says the increasing volume of cyber tips has made active investigations nearly impossible.
These dangers extend beyond child exploitation to drug access, with platforms facilitating the sale of fentanyl and illicit substances.
The Senate Judiciary Committee will continue hearings on this topic. They seem to come together discussing ways to get safety rules back in place, including quickly getting online safety acts passed. Jenna?
All right, London, thank you very much. And before we go to break, winter weather hitting hard in America. A cross-country snowstorm will slam cities from Oklahoma to Virginia. Ice, snow, and freezing temperatures affecting more than a dozen states. In North Dakota, wind chills will make it feel like negative 60 degrees. Kentucky, where some are still without power after the deadly floods that killed 14 people, could get up to 6 inches of snow. North Carolina has declared an emergency, anticipating dangerous travel and power outages. And Southern Virginia could see snow totals in the double digits by the time the storm passes Thursday. Coming up, faith, family, and the future of America. Pro-family leaders say a stronger nation starts at home. What they're fighting for next. Welcome back. The pro-family and pro-life movements have their roots in the Bible and in the founding documents of our nation. But through the years, the traditional family and the right to life have both come under attack. Kelly Wright reports on how Americans supporting these movements are fighting back.
Americans supporting family values say they are fighting an ideological and even a spiritual war against forces seeking to destroy the traditional family. Their message is simply, families are the building blocks of a great nation, pointing to God's mandate to be fruitful and multiply. Vice President J.D. Vance echoed that during the recent March for Life.
I want more babies in the United States of America. I want more happy children in our country. And I want beautiful young men and women who are eager to welcome them into the world and eager to raise them.
Ashley Hayek agrees.
Yes, I have 5 children. I would say 6 might be my work, to be quite honest. And I'm a proud Marine wife, and I'm really grateful for my husband and all he does to support me. And, you know, I think what this says is that the left has really overplayed their hands. And when I was growing up, I was told that women should be able to shatter glass ceilings and have opportunities and have a seat at the table.
Hayek is executive director of America First Works, a pro-family organization that is grateful for President Trump standing with the movement.
We will work to offer a loving hand to new mothers and young families, and we will support adoption and foster care. We will protect women and vulnerable children.
Some leaders, however, are concerned about the future of their movement. It has some political challenges following the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe versus Wade. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, explains.
The pro-family, pro-life movement is, quite frankly, I think trying to get its footing. All right, the Roe decision, the overturn of Roe, the Dobbs decision, you know, frankly, it's one of the things we prayed about, we worked for, but then when it came, wow, this happened. What happened is Donald Trump appointed pro-life justices, but, you know, we have to realize where the real authority comes from. It comes from heaven. And as that happened, we've seen since then the 2022 midterm elections, where actually we had 11 governors run on very strong pro-life platforms, and they won. Now Congress, kind of getting their footing on the issue, not able to talk about it, didn't do as well as some thought. And as a result, Donald Trump moved away from that issue in the 2024 election.
Perkins believes in order to turn that around, more church leaders will need to stand on biblical authority in addressing the issue with political and cultural leaders, especially those taking critical roles within the Trump administration.
This is a different administration than it was in 2016. And I would be dishonest if I didn't say I have some reservations.
Putting families first is a top priority for pro-life and pro-family groups. The new playbook is to make America stronger and greater through a pro-family movement that empowers traditional families and encourages them to have more children. Delano Squires of the Heritage Foundation is focused on fighting that culture war on the unborn and traditional families. He believes that children conceived deserve to be born to mothers and fathers who will love and guide them throughout their lives.
We're talking about a movement that encourages men and women to come together in holy matrimony according to, you know, a traditional and so biblical definition of what marriage is, right? One man, one woman for one lifetime, committed to one another and all the children that they raise together. And with that definition, then we can go out into the marketplace of ideas and talk about what that means. Some of that may be adjustments to the tax code, and, you know, child tax credits. Some of that may be more flexible work hours for parents.
Now it should be easier to raise a family, easier to find a good job, easier to build a home, to raise that family in, easier to save up and purchase a good stroller, a crib for a nursery. We need a culture that celebrates life at all stages, one that recognizes and truly believes that the benchmark of national success is not our GDP number or our stock market, but whether people feel that they can raise thriving and healthy families in our country.
The proponents of the pro-life and pro-family movement say that life is precious and priceless. And they believe that life begins at the point of conception. And with that, they add that the founding of our nation, the greatness of our nation, does not rest in government leaders, but in the homes of its people. And because of that, they say that families must be stronger to build stronger children, stronger communities, and a greater nation. At the White House, Kelly Wright, CBN News.
And Kelly joins me now here in studio. Kelly, great story, great topic. So where do pro-life and pro-family movements intersect?
So, Jenna, it's a very good question, and where they intersect is really important. It's instructive. All of the guests that I interviewed still hold the firm belief that the two movements merge on the issue of protecting women and the unborn. And they have expressed gratitude to the Trump administration for steps his administration is taking to do just that, through various executive orders that he had signed, such as enforcing the Hyde Amendment, which enforces the demand to stop federal taxpayer dollars to promote or fund abortions. Also, his executive order on eliminating transgender men from playing in women's sports. That's part of it.
Yeah. So, educating children is important for the pro-family movement. What does the future of that look like, Kelly?
Well, as you know, a lot of people in the pro-family movement are quite concerned about the Department of Education. In fact, the president stated that he would like to eliminate that. We'll see how that goes. The other part of that is that President Trump signed an executive order to expand opportunities for American families. Now, it is designed to expand educational freedom and opportunity for families. It specifically directs the Secretary of Education to prioritize school choice, which is very important to pro-family groups. Furthermore, it calls on the DOE to give more dollars and power to the states to deal with the challenge of making education in America great again. Another concern, DOGE.
Yeah.
And the layoffs of so many federal workers and elimination of jobs. A lot of families are concerned about that. Will Vice President J.D. Vance's statement be able to live up to that in providing access for all families to have the economic power within their homes to take care of their families?
Yeah. All right, Kelly, thank you so much. Great reporting.
Thank you.
Still ahead, a baby seal found far from home. That's next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a gray seal pup found wandering the streets over the weekend is now safe and sound. Police received a call about a possibly injured baby seal Sunday afternoon in downtown New Haven, Connecticut. Officers stayed with the seal until a crew from Mystic Aquarium arrived to pick him up. The aquarium saying it's not the first time the seal was spotted in the big city.
We're like, well, he's still bright and alert and looking good, but maybe we can just relocate him to a safe beach. And so our team did do that. But then unfortunately the next day he showed up right back in the middle of the city there.
And the pup was admitted to the aquarium's animal rescue clinic and will return to the ocean once he is fully recovered. All right, that is going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay warm if you're getting that winter weather, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care.